In 2025, the game crossed the line repeatedly, where pads were dropped, punches were landed, and blood was drawn on the pitch. These moments prove how baseball pretends to be civilized until it shows it isn't. Before we dive into it, hit the subscribe button so you never miss the upcoming wildest moments of baseball. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit Padres vs. Dodgers finally explode. Rivalries don't always explode instantly, because sometimes they simmer until the right moment finally arrives. Fernando Tatis Jr. had already been hit earlier in the series, and everyone knew it. But still, it happened again. The pitch drilled Tatis, and this time he didn't flinch or jog to first. Instead, he turned and stared not only at the pitcher, but at the entire Dodgers dugout. That stare triggered everyone. Patrice's manager, Mike Shildt, stormed out while screaming, and on the other side, Dave Roberts came right back at him. They met near the mound, face to face, where words turned into contact, and a shove landed. That shove was the one that unleashed the field. Both benches emptied at full speed, while bullpens followed. Players had to be physically restrained as tempers boiled over the limit. This was not just emotional frustration, but it was actually retaliation against resistance. What made this moment so intense was the inevitability of it happening. Everyone watching knew this was coming, and when it finally did, it felt violent because it was long overdue. José Ramírez versus Tim Anderson, the punch that shocked baseball. Some baseball fights are chaotic, but this one was surgical. It started with a hard tag at second base where José Ramírez slid in aggressively, and Tim Anderson didn't like it at all. Words were exchanged immediately, and the dose was enough for the microphones to pick it up on the broadcast. Ramírez took a step back, but it was not for moving away from the situation or de-escalating it, but it was actually for throwing a punch, which he did throw. It was not a show-off or a swing and miss. It was a clean right hand that landed flush on Anderson's jaw. Anderson instantly collapsed to the dirt, while his helmet flew away. Players started screaming, and both benches emptied in shock more than anger. This was not the usual baseball scrum, and this was actually a straight-up knockout that was caught on live television. Ramírez stood over Anderson briefly before being pulled away as trainers rushed in. Blood was clearly visible on the pitch, and Anderson required immediate attention. The crowd went silent before erupting in disbelief. The thing that made this moment so jarring was how un-baseball-like it felt. There were no warnings or any build-up across innings, and just one player who decided that he was done talking. In a sport that is built entirely on restraint, this was one of the most violent individual acts of the 2025 season. Rafael Devers versus Kyle Freeland, when admiration turned into assault. Every fight starts the moment someone refuses to let go. One such incident occurred when Rafael Devers crushed the ball. It was not a cheap homer, and it was actually a towering shot that left no doubt. It was the kind of swing that hitters dream about, and Devers admired it. It was a bit longer than usual, and Kyle Freeland watched from the mound motionless as he was still in his place. The look on his face said it all without needing words. By the time Devers reached home, Freeland was already moving towards him. What happened next was not baseball chaos, but it was a straight-up fight. Freeland charged onto Devers before he could even finish the trot. Gloves came off, punches were thrown, and helmets flew away. Players slammed into each other near home plate. While coaches were screaming to control the situation, this was not shoving, this was swinging with intent. What made this moment so violent was how fast it escalated without any warnings or chirping. It was just immediate physical retaliation, where Freeland clearly believed Devers crossed a line by admiring the homer, and he decided violence was the answer to it. Ronald Acuña Jr., the home run that guaranteed retaliation. There are several moments in baseball when everybody knows what is coming, but the only question is when. Ronald Acuña Jr. crushed the ball. It was not a wall scraper, but actually a statement homer, and he watched it while the Braves' dugout erupted. The entire crowd roared, and on the mound, the pitcher stared back. It was silent and still. The next time Acuña entered, the whole atmosphere changed. The pitch came inside and thrilled him hard. Acuña froze in his place. He didn't jog or smile, but he actually turned and unleashed everything he had been holding back by shouting directly towards the mound. Braves manager Brian Snitker exploded out of the dugout. He was furious that no warning had been issued, and instead of answers, he got tossed. That ejection poured gasoline on the sparking situation. Both benches emptied instantly, while players screamed across the infield. Coaches held stares back, and umpires had to form human barriers as tempers were surging. The thing that made this moment so volatile was not just the hit by pitch, but it was actually the timing of it. Everyone understood the hidden message behind it. Because this was not accidental, it was actually an enforcement of an unwritten rule, which was carried out in the ugliest way possible. Manny Machado hit twice. Silence before the storm. The most dangerous reactions in baseball are actually the quiet ones, and not the loud ones. Manny Machado was hit once, and he said nothing at all. When he was hit again, the entire stadium felt the temperature drop. Machado walked slowly toward first base, and he didn't break eye contact with the pitcher even for a second. There was no yelling, no gestures, and just a stare that said everything without any words. At first base, Wilson Contreras entered beside him. Words were exchanged, but in a calm, measured, and sharp way. It was the kind of conversation that didn't need the volume to feel threatening. Both benches rose immediately, and the umpires rushed in, because they knew exactly what could happen if it continued. Machado didn't swing or shove, but everyone on the field understood the moment for what it was, a warning. This was not some emotional chaos, and it was actually controlled anger. In baseball, controlled anger often leads to something worse later. This moment didn't explode on camera because the umpires came in, but it lingered long before the broadcast could move on. If you are enjoying this video so far, then make sure to subscribe to our channel for more incredible and wildest MLB moment breakdown videos. Andrew McCutchen. A pitch too close to the line. There is a clear-cut difference between pitching inside and endangering an entire career. This fastball sailed up and in too far, which made Andrew McCutchen instantly explode out of the batter's box while yelling toward the mound. The pitcher also responded to it, and that was the mistake. McCutchen is one of the most respected veterans in baseball history. When he felt his life had been threatened, his teammates also reacted with him. Benches cleared with purpose and not hesitation. O'Neill Cruz physically restrained Tommy Pham as players clustered near home plate, and shoving broke out. Voices echoed in the entire stadium, and the umpires had to struggle a lot to calm the situation. No punches landed, and that almost made it worse. Everyone knew how close this came to being a disaster. Head-high pitches can change everything because they erase context score and rivalry. All that matters is safety. This moment was not violent because of what happened, but it was actually violent because of what nearly happened. Mark Vientos versus Sandy Alcantara, the coldest stare-down of 2025. This is a confrontation that didn't start loudly, but it actually started with eye contact. After being hit by a pitch, Mark Vientos stood on first base while he locked eyes with Sandy Alcantara. Alcantara didn't look away, and seconds passed. Then, the words followed as shouting escalated instantly. Benches cleared before anyone could even take another step, and veterans had to rush in while grabbing jerseys to pull players backward. Alcantara is widely known for pitching inside, but Vientos didn't care. For him, intent didn't matter anymore, but perception did. The thing that made this moment totally unforgettable was its stillness, because there was no chaos or confusion, and just two players daring the other to cross the final line. Everyone else on the field knew exactly what they were trying to stop here, because it would have been turned into an uncontrollable chaos. Tommy Pham, when a bat drop ignited the field. Violence does not always have to start with contact, and one such example is seen here. When Tommy Pham walked on the field, he dropped the bat casually near the plate. It was nothing dramatic until the catcher took offense. Words were exchanged before Pham stopped walking. This was the moment that changed everything. Both benches emptied instantly, and players rushed toward Pham as teammates tried pulling him away to stop further escalation. Shoving broke out near home plate, and umpires had to rush into the fight to handle the situation. This was not about the bat, but it was actually about the ego of the players and their respect. It also shows how quickly something small can become something uncontrollable. This moment perfectly captured modern MLB tension, where perception alone is enough to light the fuse. Padres versus Dodgers. The series had to end like this. By the final game of the series, nobody was pretending anymore, and every pitch inside was met with noise. Every stare at that time lasted a second or two long to put the pressure. The umpires in the dugouts knew it, while the crowd was also able to feel it building as that unmistakable sense of this game not being able to end cleanly was noticeable. Then, the pitch ran in again. Fernando Tatis Jr. recoiled, spun around, and immediately started shouting. This time, there was no hesitation or holding back from either side. Padres players poured out of the dugout instantly while sprinting instead of jogging, and on the other hand, the Dodgers met them halfway on the field. This collision happened near the mound. It was not an accidental contact, but these were actually forceful shoves with forearms up and bodies crashing together. Coaches were dragged backward while players tried to break free from the teammates who were holding them by their jerseys and belts. What made this moment different from earlier confrontations was the finality, because there was no attempt to calm things down early. Even after the umpires separated the mess, players continued yelling across the field while they refused to disengage. The series didn't end with a handshake or a final out, but it actually ended with his anger, restrained barely, and the unmistakable feeling that this rivalry had crossed into something personal. MLB 2025 reminded everyone that beneath tradition lies uncontrollable and unpredictable chaos. These moments were not accidents, but they were actually breaking points for players and coaches. If you enjoyed watching this video, then do subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable and insane MLB moments.